You clicked on this video, therefore you are watching Martin's Top 100 Movie Countdown. I said I'd make a video, and this is me making a video. Before I get into the countdown, I'm not going to try to waste a lot of time, but I do want to go over kind of the parameters I had when I was putting this list together. Basically, I only had a couple of parameters. The main one was the movie had to be at least 60 minutes long, bare minimum, because there are a lot of short films out there. Although they're good, they're short films, they're not actually movies. Therefore, those had to get ruled out. Unfortunately, I made this list before I had made that distinguishing factor that they would be at least 60 minutes. Therefore, there is one honorable mention, because there was about a half-an-hour movie that made the list and then had to get taken out of the list because now it wasn't long enough to be in the list, but I still have it up here and I'll talk a little bit about it because it's still really good. Also, the only other thing is these are individual movies. There's no sets, there's no sequels. Whatever shows up on the screen and what I'm talking about, that is exactly the movie that's at that position. It is 100 movies plus the one extra short film and nothing more. So, with that, we'll get started with number 100. House on Haunted Hill. This is the 1999 version. I might be off on the year on one side of that or the other. But it is the one from the 90s, early thousands, starring Jeffrey Rush and Taye Diggs and Chris Kattan. You know, it's a standard kind of horror movie, but I just really like it. I've always enjoyed the movie. Number 99, The Ice Harvest. This is one of my Christmas favorites. I know what you're saying, it's not a Christmas movie. If you've seen it, you might say that, but it does take place entirely on Christmas Eve. It's a huge part of the movie's plot, which is about two guys, John Cusack, who you'll be seeing a lot of, and Billy Bob Thornton, are two guys that just robbed a local gangster, and they're trying to get away with the money. They do it on Christmas Eve because no one will notice it until December 26th. Number 98, Some Like It Hot. This is one of those classic black and white films. It's a great comedy starring Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. Basically, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon are a pair of out-of-their-luck musicians during the Great Depression who witnessed the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. So to hide from the mobsters, they decide to dress in drag and join a woman's traveling band. That takes them to Florida. Part of that band is, of course, Marilyn Monroe, and shenanigans ensue. It's a really funny movie. It's super enjoyable. Super strong performances by Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. It's a really good movie, and if you've never seen anything by Marilyn Monroe, I highly suggest this one. A lot of people will tell you it's a 7-year itch. I say it's Something Like It Hot. Number 97, The Blob. This is the 1988 version. It is the remake of the 1955 version, which is also really good, but I really prefer this one better. I like the effects, I like the way it plays out, and I just like that they get to do a little more with this movie, because in 1955 there was only so much you could do with a gelatinous mass that absorbs people, whereas by 1988, 30 years later, you could do a lot more with it. I say they're both good movies, I say they're both worth watching, but the one that makes the list is The Blob. It is a great movie. It's basically exactly what I said. A gelatinous mass shows up and starts eating a small town. Number 96. Space Jam. I feel like no list was complete without this movie. It's one of my favorites since I was a kid. It's one of those nice crossovers of animation and live action. If you don't know the plot, it's really simple. Aliens from Moron Mountain invade the Looney Tune land and take the Looney Tunes hostage. They decide to challenge them to a basketball game. The aliens, who are short and really can't play basketball, decide to steal the talent of NBA players, which then turns them into giant monsters. This leads the wacky Looney Tunes to enlist Michael Jordan to help play because he's currently playing baseball and not basketball. Number 95, Hot Fuzz. This is our first entry by director Edgar Wright, and the second pairing of Nick Frost and Simon Pegg in a theatrical movie. Basically, a very good London cop, too good actually, is sent out to a small town in the outskirts of London to become part of their constable force to make everyone else in London look better. There he discovers that there are shenanigans going on in this small town. It's a great action movie. Nick Frost and Simon Pegg always work really well together, and it's a really enjoyable movie. Number 94, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Based on the Douglas Adams books, which I've actually never read. I tried, it didn't work, but off topic. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is the story of a normal, everyday London man who is saved at the last moment by his best friend, who he finds out is an alien named Ford Prefects, before the world is destroyed to make way for a superhighway. Happens every day, right? 93, Ghostbusters 2. That's right, Ghostbusters 2 made this list. I've loved this movie since I was a kid. Actually, there was a point in my life where I watched this more than I watched the original Ghostbusters movie. That has since changed, and now I normally watch them back to back. Number 92, Batman the Movie. This is the Adam West movie made between the first and second season of his television show. It is a fun madcap adventure. It's not as serious as the later Batman movies would take the franchise. It still has that very comic and funny tone to it, but it's a really good time. Burt Ward does a great job, and you get 4 villains. And it successfully has 4 villains, where some of the future Batman installments can't get away with successfully doing 2 villains. Number 91, The Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy. This movie is presented by the comedy troupe The Kids in the Hall, who had a show on HBO, which got re-aired on Comedy Central for years after it went off the air. It's basically kind of the same vein as Monty Python. It's a bunch of guys who play every part imaginable, with very few exceptions, and they do the same thing with this movie, much like the cast of Monty Python did. It's a really great movie. It's about inventing the perfect drug to stop depression. It's invented, and it works, until they find out that there's this very serious side effect that they were unaware of. Number 90, perhaps one of the most recent movies on my list, Joker. I've seen it a couple of times now in theaters, and it is good. It is a strong movie. It is definitely worth seeing. It does not have a general uplifting message, and I think they do a great job portraying a villain. I won't go too much into the plot of this one, because it is such a new movie that it's actually still in theaters. You could watch this video and run out and go see it right away. Number 89, Chef. Chef is the story of a chef who tries to get out of the rut he finds himself in, cooking for the 4-star restaurant that he's cooking for, and gets fired for it. He then takes his son and goes on a cross-country adventure in a food truck. Number 88, The Cabin in the Woods. What can I say? It's a horror comedy. It's about the idea that there are still old gods living under the earth, and we need to send them ritual sacrifices every year to appease them. And there are rules of this sacrifice which basically reflect the rules of every horror movie ever. You get the nice horror movie aspect with the teenagers in the cabin, very cliche, but then you also get some great comedy because you have the people who are running the experiment underground, especially Bradley Whitford. I'm a huge Bradley Whitford fan, and he is great in this movie. It is a great horror comedy. Number 87. One of the biggest surprises for me making this list was some of the movies that just hung on while I was paring the list down. Because I own 1,400 movies roughly at the time of this filming. So that's a huge list to pare it down, plus stuff I see in theaters, which I see a lot of stuff in theaters. So it's some of the stuff that hangs on that really surprised me, and this one did. It's Employee of the Month. It's a comedy. A friend suggested it to me and I watched it, and I fell in love with it. This is a great movie. It is a great comedy. It stars Dane Cook, who I'm not a huge fan of, at least in leading roles, but he is really good in this. It also stars Dax Shepard, who's a very strong actor, and Jessica Simpson, who doesn't do bad in this movie. It's a workplace comedy set in like a Sam's Club-esque superstore. And it's about a guy who actually tries to get his act together to not only impress the girl at first, but to also impress himself and prove that he is better than what he is. It's a great story, and it's got a lot of great comedy in it. Number 86, Sing. This one didn't surprise me that it made the list. I saw this in theaters and I enjoyed the crap out of it. It's anamorphic animals, so that's always fun. But it's just the content. It's got great music behind it. It almost could be classified as a musical on top of being a children's film. But it's got some really strong voice acting from a lot of great people, and it's a really fun movie. It's about a competition to crown the best singer in town for a huge prize money that doesn't exist. Number 85, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This is one of those movies that got overhyped to me when I was first told about it. One of my friends came in and told me it was the greatest thing, it's the funniest thing they ever saw. By the way, they don't remember ever seeing it now, but it was the funniest thing they ever saw. And they took me and a bunch of friends to go see it the next day. I enjoyed it. It's got a lot of great nerd humor in it. And it's based on a really good series of graphic novels, which are also worth reading. Number 84, Waiting. It's a great comedy. If you're squeamish, it's not worth watching. Not that it's gory or anything, it's just, it's a very adult comedy. But it is funny. I've always enjoyed it. Ryan Reynolds is absolutely hilarious in this movie. And Justin Long gives a very strong performance as well. It's about a normal day working in a restaurant. And basically they over-exaggerate everything, but it's basically a normal day working in a restaurant. Number 83, Play It to the Bone. I saw this in theaters, which is really weird because back when it came out, it was definitely one of those, it was in theaters for a week and then nobody heard of it again, and I was definitely in middle school. So somehow I saw this in theaters. But it's a really good movie. It's a road trip boxing movie. Antonio Banderas and Woody Harrelson play two boxers who nobody has cared about in years. Who, because of proximity to a huge Mike Tyson fight that night, they're called upon to fight in the undercard when the two undercard fighters are both found incapable of boxing. They then travel from where they are to Las Vegas and have the match between these two people, which is an amazing match, and it gets them back on top. Number 82, The Usual Suspects. Might be one of the most mainstream-liked movies I have on my list, but I do really enjoy this movie. It's the tale of usual suspects, men who are always brought in when a crime is committed and you don't know who did it. These are the people you question. They then band together and begin performing robberies themselves. It's all told through flashback. It's a great movie and it's highly, highly worth watching. Number 81, Mystery Men. It's a superhero movie about the other guys. Mystery Men is a superhero team-up movie. You get a group of superheroes who nobody cares about, nobody thinks will ever protect them. When the champion of Champion City goes missing and is killed, these are the heroes you call upon to save the day. Number 80, Butter. This is a hard movie to really sum up. It's not a difficult movie. It's about butter sculpting. That's what it's about. It is about a butter sculpting competition, and the people who are participating in it, you have an orphaned young girl who finds herself very good at being butter, at working with butter and molding butter, and then you have Jennifer Garner who plays the wife of the champion who no longer wants to be champion, so she steps in and starts sculpting the butter and the people in their lives. It's a good comedy, it's a fun movie. Number 79, Draft Day. It's draft day in the NFL, and the general manager of the Cleveland Browns is given the first round draft pick. He didn't have it beforehand, and he gives away the farm to get it. And he has to spend the day figuring out if the person everyone thinks is going number one is worth taking, or if he should take somebody else. It's a great movie with great performances by Kevin Costner. Jennifer Garner has a great performance in it. Number 78, Idiocracy. If you want to know where our world is heading, because it's actually heading that way, watch Idiocracy. It's a Mike Judge film that he made in the early 2000s about an average man, completely average individual, played by Luke Wilson, who is frozen and forgotten about, and wakes up in the future where he is no longer the most average man in the world, he is now the smartest man in the world, as genetics have ended up making everyone an idiot. It's a great movie, it's full of a lot of laughter. Terry Crews plays the president, and he is amazing in this movie. It is a great question of, where could we be going? And nowadays you look at it and you kind of go, maybe we are heading that way. And what can we do to not end up in the world of Idiocracy? Number 77, Death at a Funeral. This is the Frank Oz version of this film. Not the American version, the English version by the American director. I know, it's confusing. But it's the story of a funeral. The patriarch of our family has died, and his children and their friends and their family all come together to mourn his death. Unfortunately, it is not a great day for that, as right from the beginning, the casket is lost on its way to where it is being shown. It is quickly found, and the hijinks continue on. It's a good comedy. It's a strong comedy. It's got a lot of great performances. Peter Dinklage is in it, and he does such an amazing job with the role he has in this movie. It is definitely one of those, if you've never seen it or you've only seen the American version, I highly suggest taking a step back, getting a copy of the British version, and giving it a watch. Number 76, Baby Driver. This is a movie about a driver. He drives criminals around after they do their heists, and he's very good at it. He doesn't want to do it anymore, but he's kind of finagled into it. It boasts strong performances by Ansel Elgort as our main character. Kevin Spacey is in it. That might make people not want to watch it, but it is a really good movie. You also have John Hamm and Jamie Foxx give very strong performances. They actually have a nice twist in there of who is actually the antagonist of this entire movie. It is a really fun movie. It's a really great movie. And I was really surprised with how much I enjoyed it when I saw it in theaters the first time. I subsequently ended up seeing it 3 times while it was still sitting in theaters.